Okay, it's Iron Bowl week. Let's just get right into it.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We know that is especially true this week. It is Iron Bowl week. Doesn't really feel like Iron Bowl week in a way, and we're going to talk about that, I think, in the third segment, Jimmy. It's kind of a weird, odd, funky week. But I think where we'll start off today, by the way, I'm going to do a crossover later today with Zach Blackerby of Locked On Auburn, who is sort of the godfather of all the college channels. He is a great American, even though he is an Auburn fan. But he's a pretty reasonable Auburn fan. And I'm teetering about whether to have a serious back and forth or to screw with him a lot about the New Mexico State game. And I'm leaning towards screw with him, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
In other words, this could be one of our final episodes of Locked On Bama.
That is true. When you started off with, you're going to do an interview with your boss, and you're thinking about telling him how terrible his team is.
You'll enjoy the new hosts, probably a couple of drunk students. That are very likely to be more astute than the two of us.
Hey, as long ago as we started, that's sort of how this thing got kicked off. We were just two drunk students. Anywho, Jimmy, yesterday Nick Saban had his Monday press conference, and I'd like to sort of take some of the things he said and maybe dissect them a little bit. I know at On 3 you guys do that too. One of the first things that was
Breyer has an excellent what he said, what he means.
Yeah, and it's tough because, Nick Saban, while he's usually pretty upfront, there's also a lot to dissect in there. I mean, that's always true of people who are well-respected and who are leaders, that when they say something, while it can be on the surface, you can take it face value, it's right, it's there, it's true, and it makes a lot of sense. But there's also a lot of stuff in between that you can try and decipher out of there, which is a huge compliment to people, because if you're not interesting, people are like, we don't really give a damn what he said. Like the things Nick Saban says are every word is parsed and everything. So one of the things he said yesterday, he talked about Terrion Arnold and how Terrion Arnold has done a fantastic job and how Terrion has had to move around the field a lot because there have been some injuries. And so he's played a lot of different positions. And one of the things that Travis Ryer reports out that I think that is so true is that this is essentially probably preparing us for Terrion Arnold going pro, because he's done such a wonderful job at all these different positions, almost in a Brian Branch kind of way, maybe a little different. I think Brian Branch may be more of a natural defensive back and defender, where Terrion Arnold is a tremendous athlete, and they're both just extraordinarily versatile. That's what I think. And I think he's just preparing us a little bit for, y'all better enjoy Terrion right now.
I think it's almost a real shame. It's just the nature of college football in 2023 that a kid like Terrion comes in and he redshirts primarily because we're moving positions for him. He was a high school safety, didn't play a lot of cornerback. So he came and redshirted at Alabama, in part because of our tremendous depth at the position. And secondly, because he was learning a new spot. Then last year, if you remember, Luke, he wasn't actually projected to be the starter. Idiots like myself were saying the starters last year would be Kool-Aid McKinstry and Eli Ricks. Well, Eli Ricks gets hurt and has to miss a ton of time. And then, but Terrion wasn't even next up. If you remember, next up after Eli Ricks was Kyrie Jackson. And Kyrie Jackson stepped in after Eli was hurt, and Kyrie played. And then Kyrie sort of had a bad game against Texas and Austin. And then it's like, hey, who's looked really good in practice? Terrion Arnold. Let's give him a shot. And then the next thing you know, it's game 3 or game 4, and Terrion's playing, and he's doing really, really well. It's so well, in fact, that when Ricks got healthy, it was a tough call as to decide, are we going to go back to Ricks? Or are we going to keep Terrion out there? And they sort of switched in and out depending on Rick's health. But going into this year, I know myself a little smarter than I was before. I thought Terrion was great for a redshirt freshman. I think he's going to be the solid starter and he's going to have a good year. but not even I saw this coming. I mean, in terms of how great he's been. So it's like Terrion's very likely to enter the draft, and it's like what's they say? We hardly knew you. I mean, he's really only been a starter for a year and a half. The expectations for him were never high until he earned those expectations on the field, and then he'll be gone. And it's almost like gone before we had enough of a chance to really enjoy him, because he's such an enjoyable kid, being so good with the media and being so good on the field and being a leader on the football team. So, I think Terrion's likely to go too, because I agree with Travis Ryer's sentiments on BOL today that most likely Terrion's going to get a first-round grade.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that maybe I should have known, but I didn't know. Terrion is he's a great interview, which is such a sign of intelligence. That's another thing, is that if you are a great interview, you are going to be pretty smart. Meanwhile, you pair that smartness, that intellect, with his athleticism. And if you're an NFL team, you're like, no, he's not the best corner in the draft. That Jim probably goes to Kool-Aid. At the same time, we can move him anywhere, and because he's so smart, we can teach him anything. So that he becomes the clay that NFL people love to mold. So while I would hate it from an Alabama fan perspective, because I want Terrion Arnold to come back next year, because I think if he comes back, I think he's the best cornerback in the country. But if he goes, I get it. I totally get it. So one other thing that Saban mentioned was he was praising praising may be a bit high. He was happy with the way the defensive line has performed, especially some of the young guys. And Travis Ryer pointed out that, they're going to have to play better, because I'm sure that the team is being reminded on a daily basis right now, maybe hourly, if not minutely basis, that last year Auburn rushed for over 300 yards against Alabama. I had totally forgotten that.
Oh, I remembered. I was probably as frustrated with Pete Golding, to be honest, because I was a little more patient with Pete than most, but I was extremely frustrated with Pete Golding and the defensive plan and the execution based on the Auburn game, almost more so than Tennessee. And that might not make sense to some people, but the way I looked at it last year, Luke, is Auburn can do one thing on offense. They can do one thing. They are completely one-dimensional. That's the easiest thing to defend on the planet Earth, is a team that is one-dimensional when you're supposed to be pretty good on defense. And Auburn ran up and down the field. I know Alabama won the game easily thanks to Bryce Young and the offense, but giving up 320 yards to a team that just absolutely could not throw the ball was extremely frustrating to me.
Let me throw this out there too. I mean, right before we go to a break, and we're going to talk in the next segment about an interesting mock signing class for the offense. But while you were talking, I just had this thought. You bring up Pete Golding, and I don't hate Pete Golding the way a lot of people that listen to this podcast hate Pete Golding. I'm not a Pete Golding fan, though. I have no problem saying that. But think about this. How much better would this defense be if Brian Branch had come back for one more year?
Oh, gosh, yes.
We weren't getting Will Anderson back.
Yeah, right.
But I'm saying, if just Brian Branch comes back, there's no doubt in my mind we're undefeated.
Well, yeah. I mean, one player might have been the difference. We got to remember that Texas game was close until we fell apart in the fourth quarter. One player could have made a big difference. But Branch was a first-round pick. I mean, and now he went in the second round. But I'm saying he's proven that he should have been the first-round pick.
Yeah.
I mean, I get him leaving. How good would we be maybe if Jahmyr Gibbs had come back, who's also tearing it up? Now, of course, he was the 12th pick in the draft, so it's not like
Detroit.
But boy, Gibbs has had a fantastic year and on my fantasy team, and the reason my fantasy team's in first place, quite frankly, is Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, man, they're going to love that dude. They already love him, but I mean, they're going to really love him and Branch. I mean, Detroit's a fun team to watch right now. But
J-Mo's got it figured out recently, playing bigger games, better games, and then recently lauded for after having a 100-yard big-time performance. As soon as the game was over, he's delivering turkeys to a disadvantaged neighborhood in Detroit. And
right.
what a dude J-Mo's turning into.
Jimmy, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you got to do is go check out LinkedIn Jobs, then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are, yes, hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and then who you'd like to ultimately hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus their leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to and helps you find them faster. Post your job for free. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, I bet they apply. Another thing you guys did it on 3, Jimmy, was a mock signing class for the offense. And frankly, I like the idea because, and now everybody right now is probably thinking, well, it's Auburn week. Why don't we talk a little bit more about Auburn? I get it, but Jimmy and I are recruitniks at heart. So we're always going to lean a little bit recruiting. I'm not going to go into the guys that we already know, like Julian Sayin. I mean, Julian Sayin's all in. He's a Bama through and through. He's got too much Bama in him. But one of the guys they included.
No, we'll say this while you're on Sayin, though. I just want to throw in that, it's a really weak year for quarterbacks nationally. I mean, I was looking at the On3 top 10 list. I've seen film of most, and I think Alabama signing Julian Sayin might be our most incredible recruiting job at quarterback in the whole Saban era, signing Sayin, because he is easily the best in the country, and we had to go to California to get him. If you don't get Sayin, I'm not sure where Alabama goes in 2024. I'm just saying it's a heck of a tumble to where Alabama would have likely ended up with. And the fact they had to go to California to get him. I just want to throw that in because saying it's the most impressive signing of the Saban era at quarterback is saying a lot. But boy, I'm telling you, that was a heck of a job. Not a great class nationally. He had to go to Carlsbad, California to land Julian Sayin.
I mean, we have had pretty good luck in California recruiting quarterbacks, #1. #2, I would say this: if we didn't get Sayin, and let's say that we weren't in on Dylan Raiola, who, by the way, y'all dropped from 5-star status. That did not get lost on me, and I bet it wasn't lost on a lot of Georgia fans.
We probably heard about that, and I'll just say that so for every guy who moved up, someone's got to move down. For guys that earned going up, someone's got to go down. And I can just assure people the way that On3 puts this together, there's no bias in any of it. I mean, it's really good evaluators that do this work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Julian Sayin's the best quarterback in the class. I hadn't seen every quarterback, but of the top ones, I think he's the best. But anyway, I think Sayin is a Bama through and through. And but one of the guys that you put in the mock class, and I say you, I don't know if you're actually a part of this, but
it was it was Tim Watts and Andrew Bone, and I'm sure got some input from Joseph Hastings. But this is really a Tim Watts, Andrew Bone presentation.
Well, you guys put in Kewan Lacey, who, by the way, has moved into the top 100, a running back out of Texas that was committed to Nebraska. He visited Alabama recently, had a great visit. And what you don't include is Daniel Hill. Now, there is a mention in this about Daniel Hill potentially still being on the list. And yes, Alabama would take him and yada, yada, yada. But I get the sense that Alabama is sort of like, hey, Daniel, we want you, but we got to do something. And if we ain't getting you, we're going to get Kewan Lacey and pretty quickly, and you need to, poop or get off the pot, as they say.
I guess it's a little bit like in high school or whatever, and you have a crush on a girl, and you're just chasing and chasing and chasing, and then and you never get the no. You never get the no, but you're not getting a yes. And then after 6 or 8 months of no yes, it's time to move on to the next target, right? And I think that's kind of what's going on with Daniel Hill. Alabama's not moved on. Alabama would take Daniel Hill right now and tomorrow and the next day. They want Daniel Hill, but he's visited Alabama 20-something times. He's right down the street in Meridian. He's had numerous opportunities to commit to Alabama and just never has. and now is saying he's going to commit in January, even after the early signing period. So I think once that happened, Alabama understandably looked at other targets, and wow, the rise of Kawan Lacey, who I love. I like Lacey from the start for a bunch of reasons. Number one, start with the tape. I mean, Kawan Lacey, his senior tape is fantastic. Secondly, I'm a Matt Rule fan at Nebraska. I think Matt Rule's an excellent evaluator. The fact that Matt Rule found Kawan Lacey early and got him to commit makes me like Lacey even more, because I appreciate Matt Rule's evaluations and his rebuilding efforts at Nebraska. He's a Texas kid. There is a long, long, long list of great running backs from East Texas that Kawan Lacey would be joining. I'm a big Kawan Lacey fan, and now throw in the fact that On3's great evaluation team now calls him a top 100 player nationally. I will be thrilled if Kawan Lacey comes to Alabama. And On3, Sam Spiegelman just last night RPM'd Kawan Lacey to Alabama. He was included in Tim Watts, and Andrew Bones' projection. So I'm fired up about Kawan Lacey, that I personally consider a high 4-star type prospect.
And then the only other guy, of course, Caleb Odom in there, Rico Scott, Amari Jefferson. They mentioned if Ryan Williams were to reclassify, obviously that would bump this class way
Yeah,
up.
there's momentum there that's going to happen.
Okay. And you still, I mean, just to make it so that nobody's worried,
Yep.
you still feel good about Ryan Williams sticking with Alabama, right?
I'm very optimistic about Ryan Williams in Alabama. I've never wavered on that. Still not wavering. Now it's becoming more public and more, there's just more momentum, and Ryan Williams reclassifying from the 25 class to the 24 class. Now just people are going to have to be patient. Again, like I've always stressed here on the show about reclassifying, you can't just announce that you're graduating early.
Yeah.
It's not an announcement. There's a lot of high school credits to accumulate, and he's already a full-time high school student. So he's having to accumulate extra credits towards graduating. That's not an easy thing to do. You can't just announce that you're going to do it. You sort of have to get close to the goal before you're like, hey, this could really happen. So, but I would say about patience, doesn't it make more sense to everyone listening that accumulating enough credits to graduate is more likely to happen at the end of your junior year and not halfway through it? So it might be more of a May thing for Ryan Williams to actually graduate from Saraland, so he wouldn't be at Alabama until the summertime or next fall.
And not only that, by the way, Ryan Williams is in the middle of another state championship run. So,
and then there's that. He plays football.
Yeah. And boy, I don't have a dog I want Benjamin Russell probably to go as far as they can because I'm from Alex City, even though I didn't go to Benjamin Russell. But I also want to see Ryan Williams. I tell you, if I could have my dream matchup in the state championship, again, I'm an Alex City native. Of course, I'd like Benjamin Russell there. But from a recruiting standpoint, I want to see Saraland take on Clay Chalkville. But that's a talk for another day. The only other guy that was new, other guy that was new in the mock class, you talk about all the offensive linemen already committed, which we have 3, Casey Poe, et cetera, all that. You included Jordan Seaton. I say you own 3 included Jordan Seaton. And I'm like, that's awesome because he's really moving up the charts. But I'm getting more and more the sense that, like, he's more open than I thought. I felt like he was an 80%er to Bama 3 weeks ago. Now I feel like 40%er for some reason.
Okay. I think with Jordan Seaton, first of all, who are we talking about adding? Ryan Williams and Kawan Lacey. Kawan Lacey, brand new to the top 100. Alabama has an incredible recent lineage of running backs. We're extremely attractive program to running backs. And Ryan Williams, who's an in-state star. Jordan Seaton is just more problematic to project, right? I mean, Jordan Seaton goes to IMG, which means you're recruited by everyone. Every single Power 5 program visits IMG more than once a year to recruit. Every Power 5 program. Now throw in Jordan Seaton isn't originally from IMG in Bradenton. He's obviously, like everyone else at IMG, from somewhere else. He's from Washington, D.C. So he has no connections or ties to Alabama geographically. He's just the number one offensive lineman in the nation. So offensive line is such a valuable position. It's sort of like, I guess the best way to put it is, I'm a baseball guy. Just imagine the top free agent pitcher. I mean, it's not easy to land that guy. You know, you might have an extremely attractive offer. The Braves offered Aaron Nola, by the way, like 7 years, 160 million, 5 years, 160 million, and thought, well, we got a new pitcher, Aaron Nola. When they made that offer, he ended up getting even more money and a longer deal from the Phillies. So I'm not saying that Jordan Seaton is like that. I don't know that. I'm just saying that when the number one offensive tackle in the nation is from Washington, D.C. and plays at IMG, he ain't going to be easy for Alabama to sign in this landscape. Now, it is very, very, very possible, so much so that BOL, we include Jordan Seaton on our projected class. But that ain't a lock. That's hard.
That's just a projection.
It's a projection. That one's hard. But we do believe he ends up at Alabama, who also has a great lineage of tackles recently. And not only that, tackles from IMG. And that's what's helping here. Latham, Booker, Evan Neal. Seaton would be the latest. He's as good as all those guys, too.
Seaton comes in. You have a year of Proctor, who's obviously gotten better. You got Tyler Booker coming back. All of a sudden, that offensive line, scary good next year. But
Seaton might be more athletic than even Latham, Booker, and Evan Neal. I mean, that's how good he is. He's
Evan Neal did the
extremely athletic. Yeah.
Did the splits on two like boxes.
I'm not so sure Jordan Seaton shouldn't be playing defense. That's how good that guy is.
If I did the splits on two boxes, I would be able to put whatever was left of my crotch into my pocket because everything would have fallen out.
I think I want to be there with the camera when he walked in and Ashley Johnston on the gymnastics team said, "We have a new gymnast, girls." Here he is. And he's decked out in his gymnastics leotard or whatever they call him.
Yeah, but how are you on the hobby horse, Evan?
And then you see.
Okay, Jimmy, I need to tell everybody about PrizePicks. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the Iron Bowl. And does it really feel like an Iron Bowl week? We're going to talk about that. Look, PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We're the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Last night, if you took, say, the under for Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes, you were a winner because it was raining, it was pouring, the old man was snoring, the whole thing, and nobody could complete a pass unless they were throwing to Smitty. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more or less than on 2 to 6 players stat projections and watch the winnings just roll in. PrizePicks is the most fun I've had, winning up to 25 times my money this football season, and now I can play during the basketball season too. You just need to select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. With basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. That would have been interesting last night. Want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePick community each and every week. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Jimmy, it is Iron Bowl week, and usually my least favorite week of the year. If you have listened to this podcast for a year or more, you know Thanksgiving is my least favorite holiday. Not because I don't like seeing my family. I like seeing my family. I think Thanksgiving food is the most overrated food in the history of mankind. I don't like turkey. Everybody has turkey all the time, and I don't like turkey. I don't like turkey, period. Every casserole is brown. Everything on the table is brown. And brown just didn't, when you think about colorful, when you think about the rainbow, you don't think about brown. I don't want all my food.
It's the color of leaves in the fall in the deep South.
It is, but there's also some oranges and yellows and some, faded greens and whatever.
Once you get up to maybe North Alabama.
And I'm going to tell you a quick story about, I know I've told it before, but very quickly, I had a neighbor, my parents had a neighbor. And when they moved in from Canada, the other neighbor came down and was going to welcome them. She baked them a casserole. She comes down, bringing the casserole with her oven mitts, like literally right out of the oven. She goes to the door, knocks on the door. He opens the door. And she says, "Hey, I just wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood. I'm so-and-so." And he said, "We don't eat casserole." And he shut the door.
Shut the door.
And she had the walk of shame to walk back to your house, still with the oven mitts, still with the casserole steaming, just is like imprinted on my brain. But Jimmy,
wow.
Thanksgiving week is Iron Bowl week.
Happy Thanksgiving.
That's pretty downtown, right? And that really puts a pin in the balloon of all Canadians are super nice. But anywho, you know, it feels like after the New Mexico State game that Auburn lost, it does feel like something was taken off of this. And I hope the team doesn't feel this way. I hope the team understands. And I feel like they get it. I don't know why it's not as like, I'm usually full of angst right now. But I'm not right this minute. Not that I think we're a surefire win. I do think we're going to win now. I feel a lot better about that. At the same time, it's I'm missing the angst I normally have. Are you, or am I just alone?
I don't have too much angst, but all the pieces are in place to take this game too lightly. Number one, the Alabama fandom. And I read y'all's opinions every day. I love it on BOL. I read y'all's opinions. I see them on Twitter. We're focused on Georgia and making the playoff, understandably, because that's the mountain, right? I mean, it's Georgia and it's the playoff, and that's what everybody's talking about. Now throw in the fact that Auburn is not only not good, they're not good. If they had beaten New Mexico State, Auburn is still not that good, but they lost to New Mexico State. And it wasn't even close. They got drilled by New Mexico State 31-10. So now you throw in that you're looking forward to Georgia next week, and now Auburn has that terrible loss, and they're not good. It's just easy to overlook this game. And I worry about that because me and you both know that, hey, history says Alabama's going to win this game. History also says this might be tight. And we don't even really have to get too back in the recent. I mean, we don't have to get back in the time machine. The last time we were there, it was really hard, and we had a Heisman winning quarterback, literally, and Will Anderson, and still it took overtime against, guess what, a bad Auburn team. So here we are. So I'm a little worried, but do I have the normal Iron Bowl angst I normally have? Not really. Because it's just so obvious that Alabama is a much better team, and the better team usually wins this game.
And that is so true. The better team does normally, and you know, give Saban a bunch of credit. Saban said the same thing. He didn't do like most of us fans and blame some of the losses on, UFO intervention or Indian burial ground voodoo. He didn't do that. I mean, he said the better team does normally win this game. And while I think he's right, at the same time, I do believe UFOs are involved. There is a grand conspiracy sometimes when Auburn wins. Anywho, that's going to do it for today's podcast. Tomorrow, Locked On crossover with my main man, Zach Blackerby. And then Jimmy and I will be back Friday for our predictions show. And looking forward to that. But until then, everybody, roll tide and have a great Thanksgiving.
Roll tide.